This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by lynda.com, the unparalleled online video training library. For a free 10-day unlimited trial, visit lynda.com/macvoices. And by Smile, the makers of PDF Pen, PDF Pen Pro, PDF Pen for iPad and iPhone, PDF Pen Scan Plus for iPad and iPhone, Text Expander Touch, and Disc Label. Find out more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we have Mr. Joe Kissell back with us again. This time he is the author of a little slow motion wave there by Joe. He's the author of Take Control of iCloud, 4th edition. Wow, 4th edition. Joe, great to see you as always.
Nice to be here, and may I say happy anniversary.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I can't believe you've been doing this almost as long as we've been doing Take Control Voice.
It is a little amazing, I must admit. Somebody emailed me today and said something about a decade. And it's like, wow, you know, at least I don't think I'd seen that in print anywhere. It's like a decade, that just doesn't make any sense. But yeah. A decade of Mac Voices. And I think I haven't done the roll-up, but I think probably you, if you're not the most frequent guest, you are right there in the top 2 or 3. So thank you.
I've been thinking I should do a tally of how many times I've been on the show, too. And I'm sure it's going to be a very large number.
Well, thank you for all the support you've given over the years and all the wisdom you've shared. It's very much appreciated. And
my pleasure.
We're going to keep doing it for at least another 10 years, right?
Okay.
All right.
Let's do it.
So Take Control of iCloud, 25th edition.
Oh, good grief.
I'm sorry. No, this is the 4th edition. And and at some point, I'm not sure how much there is to talk about with iCloud. So I'm going to start it this way. Is iCloud now reliable enough to trust? Because up to this point, with a few exceptions, it was kind of tough.
Well, that's an interesting place to start. iCloud, like a real cloud, is constantly changing. Features get added, removed, changed. Clouds are kind of unpredictable. You think it's going to rain and then it doesn't. You think it's not going to rain and then it does. So that's kind of the nature of cloud stuff. And iCloud is, very much adheres to that model. I have this section in my book that says, hey, everything that's new in iCloud since the last time I updated this book, which was like a year ago. It's a pretty long list, actually. It's not like Apple did this all at once. The changes have been rolling out gradually. That list does not include massively increased reliability. That's not like the first bullet item on the list. What's weird is, as I read Twitter and I get emails from people and I sort of observe what people say about iCloud's reliability, there's this really odd phenomenon. Some people will say, oh, I just wish all of iCloud could be as reliable as iCloud Photo Library. And other people say, ugh, iCloud Photo Library sucks. I wish all of iCloud could be like contact syncing. And other people say, contact syncing sucks. And everybody has a different experience. I can't explain that. I mean, it's the cloud. There are very many variables involved. Everybody has their own way of doing things. One person has a very complex setup and lots of photos or music or contacts or whatever it is. Someone else has very few. Someone else has lots of accounts. Someone else has been migrating systems for years and years and years, whereas another person has just, set up a new Apple ID. There are just so many variables that people have shockingly different experiences. So it's not really fair to say that iCloud as a whole is unreliable. It's not even fair to say that some particular aspect of iCloud is unreliable. I mean, hey, we've talked about mail how many times? And, in my experience, iCloud Mail has been fairly solid. Yes, there will be the occasional odd glitch, but for the most part, it does what it's supposed to do. Other people, at the very same time think that iCloud Mail is really awful. So I can only sort of speak from my experience. Like, somebody reports something and I'll test it and I'll say, I believe you're having a problem with that. I don't think you're lying to me, but I'm not having that problem. And it's not that you're seeing things. It's not that you're doing something wrong. But, the internet is a big place, and OS 10 and iOS 9 are big, complicated systems. And there are so many reasons that one person may see one behavior and another person may see something else. All that said, I do have a general vague sense that the overall level of reliability is inching up. It's certainly not bulletproof, but then again, nothing is. Gmail certainly isn't. Dropbox certainly isn't. You name the cloud provider and I can point to the outage that had people tearing their hair out. So Apple, for better or worse, is trying to do a lot of things with the cloud. I mean, it's not like Dropbox where they're just doing, a couple of things, file and photo syncing and some team stuff. Apple's doing that, but also they're doing the pages and numbers and Keynote in the cloud, and also the email, and also your phone when you're doing a video conversation feature. Tons and tons of different things. So I want to give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt, because considering how many things they're doing, it's doing okay.
Joe, you surprised me when you said about iCloud Mail, because of course that means .macmail, .memail, and all that. And I have to confess, yes, I guess if you pinned me down and I went to look at the website, I would include that in iCloud services. I personally tend to think of the syncing parts back and forth. I think of photos in the cloud. Right now I'm thinking about Apple Music as being a cloud-based service. And of course, we'll try not to go too far into that. Definitely, though, iCloud Drive, which seems to be one of the biggest new things in El Capitan from an iCloud perspective.
Well, you raise an interesting question, perhaps without even meaning to, which is, what are the boundaries of iCloud? So every time I look at get ready to revise this book, I sort of look at all of Apple's websites, and I try to figure out which features does Apple believe are part of iCloud and which features does Apple believe are not part of iCloud. And their marketing messages are sometimes kind of confused. It used to be that Apple claimed that the ability to re-download something you purchased, a book or a TV show or a song or something, was an aspect of iCloud. It never really was, because anybody could do that even if you didn't have an iCloud subscription. And eventually they stopped claiming that. But there are still a bunch of things that are kind of ambiguous. So you mentioned Apple Music. And I'm writing the book, and Tanya and Shali sort of cooperated on the editing. And I get these little notes in the margin like, why didn't you mention Apple Music? I'm like, Apple Music isn't an iCloud feature. And they're like, what? But it isn't. You can subscribe to Apple Music independently of iCloud, and you can use iCloud without using Apple Music. They do kind of sort of interact, especially in terms of iTunes Match. Like, iTunes Match is definitely an iCloud feature. You have to have iCloud use iTunes Match. And if you're using iTunes Match, there's certain interactions with iTunes Music with Apple Music that you need to be aware of. But the problem is iCloud uses your Apple ID as a way of identifying who you are. Lots of other Apple services, including Apple Music, also use that same Apple ID. So it's really easy to assume that anything that uses your Apple ID is by definition iCloud service, but really that's not the case. And although it's not an exhaustive list, I will freely admit that if you open up the iCloud pane of system preferences or the iCloud settings on your iOS device and look at that list, mail, contacts, calendars, iCloud Drive, all those things in that list. That is, as a very rough first pass, a pretty good idea of what is in iCloud. And things that are not on that list, you should initially suspect probably are not in iCloud. There's some little qualifications and exceptions, but that's, as a first pass, a pretty good way of telling the difference.
I want to make a point about the reliability discussion we had earlier, because I think everybody's had those hiccups you were talking about. But I know you don't just go through and take a lot of anecdotal evidence and wrap it in. You do testing and retesting and retesting, maybe retesting. I know you stress test things.
I do.
So maybe I will put it to you, based on that and based on what you recommend in the book. Is there any place that you find iCloud at the moment consistently unreliable that someone should probably stay away from, or is it really one of those things where, okay, you got to test it out for yourself and figure out what works and doesn't?
I don't know. I feel like anything having to do with music is a real sore spot right now. It's a real bag of hurt, as someone might have once said. iTunes. Can I complain about iTunes for a minute?
Sure.
Worst Apple product ever. It's so awful. It tries to be a million things and it doesn't do any of them well. Some of the things that iTunes does have to do with iCloud. Some of them don't. And iCloud, it's a little bit hard to distinguish. What parts of my unhappiness are due to iCloud and what parts of it are due to the inherent design of iTunes, which either needs to be completely redesigned from scratch or needs to be split up into 3 or 4 or 5 different apps, or both. And I'm not the first person to say this. I'm not the 100th person to say this. I mean, everybody has known for a long time. Apple keeps revising iTunes to make it harder to find things, but not to increase its reliability. So I will say I'm not an Apple Music subscriber, because I don't use music that way, but I do subscribe to iTunes Match, and I have had such bizarre experiences with all the music stuff that it's just really frustrating. And if I had, based on my personal experience, and again, other people may have different experiences, if I had to pick an area to fix first, it would be making sure that the music stuff is really bulletproof. And the second thing, right after music, would be photos. Now, we talked about iCloud Photo Library before. I wrote this big long FAQ for tidbits on it. It's one of those things where, gradually Apple does make minor corrections to address things, but it still feels like, like it wasn't thought through. It feels, and I've thought this about many Apple products, like the people who design it don't actually use it in the way that ordinary people do. I mean, ordinary people have tens of thousands of photos in their libraries. They're constantly snapping pictures on their iPhones and on their iPads and with other cameras, and they're switching devices all the time. And it just feels to me like anybody who would do that would immediately see, oh wow, this is confusing, and what happens here? I mean, I kid you not. I've gotten a number of emails from a genius who works at an Apple store asking me questions about how iCloud Photo Library works so that he can explain it to his customers. Like, I mean, so yeah, and I understand it's really complicated. It's a really hard problem to solve, but Apple's supposed to be good at solving those hard problems. And I think it's not. It might not even actually be a reliability problem so much as a logic problem. Like if Apple made it clear what is happening when, under what circumstances, and I mean, just fixed up the user interface so that it made more sense. Perceived reliability issues might, to some extent, go away. So, I don't know.
I think those are fair observations. I've had some interesting experiences with Apple Music. I am an Apple Music subscriber, and so I've made a couple mistakes, and things got wiped out from my library. Fortunately, I learned from some of my predecessors and didn't use my main library, but was using backups, so I didn't lose anything. But it is a challenge. You made a great point though earlier. That Apple was trying to do so many things with the cloud in so many different areas. I don't know if that's affecting the reliability or the consistency of the experience since they're trying to do it sort of all at once. I mean, stuff is rolled out, but they keep changing things constantly, trying to make it better, and that leads to confusion.
Well, I think one of the things that's going on, and I have heard anecdotes over the years about, Apple's working on some new top secret project, and the team that is involved in this project must work in complete isolation, and then, it's rolled out, and it's an iCloud feature, and the rest of the people working on all the other aspects of iCloud were not aware that this new feature exists, and by the way, it has to interoperate with them perfectly. This kind of thing seems to happen a lot at Apple. It's not just that Apple keeps secrets from the outside world, it's that individual groups and teams within Apple keep secrets from each other. So it's very easy to see aspects of iCloud that look like, does the left hand know what the right hand is doing? The probable answer is no. They probably didn't. They probably, this group made that thing happen and this other group made this other thing happen, and they literally did not know what each other were doing. And that's why some of it looks sort of, cobbled together.
This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of PDF Pen, PDF Pen Pro, PDF Pen for iPad and iPhone, PDF Pen Scan Plus for iPhone and iPad, Text Expander Touch, and Disk Label. Find out more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. I'm betting that you use PDFs in one way or another on a pretty regular basis. At least every week, maybe every day, maybe even multiple times a day. That's why you need PDF Pen from Smile. With PDF Pen, you can do everything to PDFs that you want to do, that you need to do. Mark them up. Securely redact them so that the parts you don't want read can't be read. With PDF Pen Pro, you can take it a step farther. Run your PDFs through optical character recognition so that they become editable text. Export them to Microsoft Word, export them to Excel, export them to PowerPoint. And that's just the beginning. Create and edit fillable PDF forms. Create a document table of contents. Scan material directly to PDF from a scanner. Sign PDFs with your signature. Convert entire websites to PDFs so you can read them offline. The list goes on and on. The fun doesn't stop there though. With PDF Pen for iPhone and iPad, some of the most powerful features of PDF Pen are available on your iPhone or your iPad, so you can work on the go. Want to tap all that power quickly and easily? Michael E. Cohen helps you do it in Take Control style with Take Control of PDF Pen 7. With Michael's help, you'll be a PDF Pen power user in no time. Don't take my word for it though. Download a trial version of PDF Pen from smilesoftware.com and find out just how much you can do with a PDF. That's PDF Pen and PDF Pen Pro for Mac, and PDF Pen for iPhone and iPad for iOS, all from Smile, the makers of world-class software. Thanks to Smile for being the longest-running sponsor of Mac Voices. How about iCloud Drive? Because that's something that I think a lot of people were looking forward to, and my personal experience has been pretty good with it. But I freely admit that I've been just a little hesitant to start using it too much or start relying on it too much. Are my fears well-founded or really outdated?
iCloud Drive's not too bad. iCloud Drive, I mean, the big new thing is that there's an iOS app for iCloud Drive. So you're no longer limited to accessing it only within apps. You can also have just a standalone place, just like the Dropbox app or Google Drive or whatever, where you can look at all of your all the files stored in iCloud Drive, even if, no matter what app they go with. And you can move things around, you can create your own folders and so on. iCloud Drive is pretty good. There are still some aspects of it that are a little bit weird, a little opaque. A lot of apps use iCloud Drive sort of in the background to store data, although they don't actually have a folder of their own in iCloud Drive, so it doesn't look like they do. I'm talking about apps that aren't document-based. Like, Pages is document-based, so it's going to have a folder with your Pages files in it. But, 1Password isn't document-based. There's not like a document for each of your passwords or something. So it's going to store its data in iCloud Drive, but you're not going to be able to see that the same way you would with document-based apps. So there are some weirdnesses. A lot of people would like for iCloud Drive to do some of the same things that Dropbox does. For example, a lot of people would like it if you could somehow say, this folder here, it's in iCloud Drive, but I don't want you to sync it to my Mac. I want this folder to function as a backup. It's stored in the cloud. It is not also duplicated on my Mac. You can't do that. You could do that on Dropbox if you wanted to. One of the things that Apple added relatively recently was the ability to undelete things. So if you have a file that you removed from iCloud Drive accidentally, you can go onto the iCloud website, into settings, and you can find it. You can restore that old version of your file, and you can go back and see multiple versions of your files as well. That's something that Dropbox can do, but Dropbox makes it a lot more convenient. And that's a little bit weird to say because Dropbox's way of doing it is not very convenient. Like you can't do it in the Finder. You have to go into the Dropbox website to be able to restore older versions of files or deleted files. You can do that in iCloud Drive too, but it's even less convenient because not only do you have to go to the website, but you have to go to this weird place in settings that you would never find on your own. And all of your files are just listed together. It's not like you can say, oh, I'm just going to navigate my hierarchy and find this is the file I'm interested in. Show me the older versions of that. It's really awkward. It's really unintuitive. And like Dropbox, Apple stores the older versions of your files only for a month. So great that you can restore deleted files and older versions. Yay. But come on, guys. This is Apple, for crying out loud. Apple invented cool, intuitive UI. That's like their thing, has always been their thing, but they're really sucking at it when it comes to certain things, and iCloud Drive is one of those things. Like you can do better. Do better.
Yeah, the Dropbox sort of set, I think, a lot of people's expectations for what a cloud service should be. There were a lot of them came after it, and there are a lot of them that offer a lot of cool features and some great choices out there, along with iCloud Drive. But we all got used to it, and it's kind of like, the Xerox problem where suddenly it's no longer a brand name, it's a process. And now we all think of Dropbox as the way things should work.
Yep.
So, Joe, and unfortunately, we kind of started this off on a negative footing, and I'm kind of unhappy with myself that I did that because but it has been a lot of reliability. How about let's focus on some of the things that iCloud does well that you talk about in the book.
Well, I do have to mention this. A year ago, late 2014, when I was updating the book then, I was excited to have a little section about how iCloud massively dropped the prices on extra storage. This year, I'm revising the book, and once again, I have to say, they have again lowered the prices, sometimes by as much as half, and that's great. That's terrific. So iCloud Drive and Dropbox are basically neck and neck now, price-wise. The tiers are a little bit different, but basically they're about the same. So that's really good. So yay, Apple, lowering prices. Always happy to hear that, especially since we are now storing so much more data in the cloud. And it's, I wish they weren't giving away just 5 gigabytes for free. That's kind of lame. So iCloud Photo Library came to the Mac, so that's nice. It was, a year ago. It was just on iOS. The Notes app. I used to joke about the Notes app. It's like, this is the most boring feature in iCloud. You write notes. They're plain text. They sync to your devices. Really, do you want me to say more about that? It's a Notes app. But now Notes has gotten kind of interesting. You can have all different kinds of lists, and you can have graphics and attachments, and you can have URLs and maps, and you can share documents from all over your Mac and iOS device to the Notes app, and it no longer uses IMAP for syncing its data, which was kind of clunky. So Notes has gotten way, way better. That's on the web as well as in iOS, as well as on your Mac, and so those are all really good things. The web app for mail now supports mail drop. So that's kind of nice. If you have an attachment, you can send it using mail drop on the web as well as in the Mac Mail app. Couple new apps, just like 3 days or something before we published the book, Apple put a new web app on iCloud.com, the Find My Friends web app. So you now have another way to do that. For those people who publish data, news or whatever on the web, you have an RSS feed or blog or news site or whatever. There's now also a news publisher app, which you won't see unless you explicitly add it, but this is a way of configuring what you're publishing to Apple News on iOS. Security improvements, so they've, new and better two-factor authentication. So there are lots of good new things. Interestingly, another thing that happened just like a week before we published was if you go onto the iCloud website and you look at like the Pages, Numbers, Keynotes app, they lost the little beta banner in the corner. So Apple no longer considers them beta. They're now full, real, web apps. They're still not as powerful as the desktop versions, but they're making progress, and Apple at least feels like they're ready to be considered real apps. So it's clear as you look even month by month, Apple is paying attention to all the different aspects of iCloud, is improving things, adding features. I wish I could say it was consistently good and consistently, making large strides forward, but at least, good things are happening.
So what I think you said is what I think that I feel about iCloud, that pretty much everything is improving. It's improving in spurts and starts and unevenly, but it is getting better, with the possible exception of iTunes-related services. But we're going to be real careful with that, because the last thing we want to do is go too far down that hole. But yeah, it feels like it's a lot more integrated into the system now. And I personally feel much more comfortable using it for things that I probably would have before put over in Dropbox, and now I'm okay with it.
One comment I'll make is that I have a sort of I have lots of like problems that how troubleshooting, how to solve various problems in my book, but I have like my all-purpose iCloud troubleshooting procedure. Like if you've tried other easier things and they fail, well, what you do is you sign out of iCloud completely. Don't just turn off like one service, just you sign out. And then maybe restart your Mac for good measure, sign back in. And in extreme cases, you might have to do this on all your devices. I think a year or two ago, I would have considered that kind of scary, kind of daunting. It's like, oh, you're telling me to reinstall Mac OS X. Like it's like this big thing that feels like a lot of things are going to go wrong. I'm going to lose lots of data. But in reality, it's not like that at all. I've done that many times on a bunch of different devices. You sign out, you sign back in, you wait a little while, depending on how much stuff you got, maybe a few minutes, maybe a couple of days, and your stuff is just back, and it's all where it should be, and everything's fine. And so I love that I can, knock on wood, depend on that. When something goes wrong, you sign out, you sign back in, iCloud resyncs your stuff, and it's almost always just fine. This
This is going to sound like someone that's been burned a few times, because I have, by a lot of different services. But is there a way that is convenient, and you cover it in the book, of being able to back up iCloud Drive, or is that just completely off the wall? We're trying to get used to this idea that, and you and I have talked about it, that the truth is in the cloud. Okay, so that's great, but I think I'd like to preserve today's version of the truth, somewhere where it's within my control.
Well, I got an email from a friend of mine in Paris who was urging me to editorialize about something. He was talking to let's just say a well-known Mac personality who had declared that as soon as the iPad Pro comes out, this person is going to go all iOS, just not going to use a Mac anymore. iPads are going to be everything he needs. And so my friend was saying, well, okay, but what about backups? And the guy's like, well, I'm going to use iCloud Drive to store all my stuff. And I'm going to use iCloud Drive to back up all my stuff. And my friend is like, do you see a little problem there? You can't rely on the same service, which, by the way, isn't on your computer and you have no control over, for both primary and backup storage. Like, that is crazy scary. And he was urging me to say, please don't do that. If you want to store your stuff in iCloud Drive, well, that's great. But for the crying out loud, just have another backup. How do you do that? Well, the really simplistic answer is, if you have iCloud Drive enabled on your Mac and you back up your entire Mac, you do a bootable clone or you use Time Machine or whatever, all those files that constitute the contents of iCloud Drive will be in your backup. They'll be in your backpack too. As you probably know, if you click on iCloud Drive, it might look like it's sort of at the top level of your hard drive, but really it's just a pointer to a very hidden folder deep down in the bowels of OS X. And I can tell you where to find that folder, where the actual local cached copies of all your files are. And that's the one that you really need to back up. But I think the better, sort of simpler, wiser advice is just back up your whole disk, and then when you need the files, they'll be there.
Which brings to, I guess, to the fore an interesting point that pretty much everything that is in iCloud, not everything, but pretty much everything, is also on your Mac. So
yes,
that's where we go back to the Dropbox question and the actual storage in the cloud. That this is not really the truth. Yeah, I guess the truth is in the cloud, but the copies are everywhere, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, and that fact can lead to some weird, awkward use cases sometimes. I get emails about just some particular sequence of events. Somebody had a crash and replaced this and restored that, and because of this weird confluence of things, the fact that my data was only in iCloud really caused a big problem. But my basic advice has always been and continues to be, don't have just one copy of your data. Even if that copy is in the cloud, and even if that cloud provider claims to be making their own backups, you need to have backups in more than one place. And at least one of those places should be somewhere you have direct physical control over. So the mere act of duplicating your Mac's hard drive, and you have your backup drive, and you stick that in some safe place, a closet or whatever, a drawer. If you have backed up everything on your disk, then that will include everything in iCloud Drive as well.
Today's Mac Voices is sponsored by lynda.com, the unparalleled online video training library. Get a full free 10-day trial at lynda.com/MacVoices. I've been telling you now for some time about the breadth of topics that lynda.com covers. with almost 4,000 titles in a wide variety of disciplines, both tech and non-tech. This time, though, I want to make sure you understand the depth of lynda.com's offerings. Let's say that you're interested in photography. lynda.com currently has 569 courses under the photography category, with 26,199 video tutorials, so you can see exactly what you're trying to learn. Topics like street photography, Lightroom, Photo Magico, Photoshop Elements, The Practicing Photographer, and many, many more. So no matter what kind of deep dive you want to take in photography, lynda.com has you covered. Or maybe you're interested in business. lynda.com has 1,351 courses with 53,467 video tutorials. Now that's depth. In that category, you can see courses on customer service, decision making, Excel, Office 365, communications, LinkedIn, project management. The list goes on and on. And with over 1,300 courses, I really mean it goes on. And those are only two of the broad categories at lynda.com. To appreciate it, you really need to do two things. First, visit lynda.com/MacVoices and do some browsing. Type something you're interested in the search box and watch the list of courses and videos appear. Then do it again with a different subject. And again. You're going to realize just how valuable lynda.com can be to you. Then, while you're still using the link lynda.com/MacVoices, sign up for a free unlimited 10-day trial. You can go back and watch any of the courses you just found, or pick something else, because your trial gives you access to the entire lynda.com library. Every course, no limitations for 10 days. Watch as much as you wish about whatever you wish, then sign up and keep on learning. That's lynda.com/MacVoices for your free 10-day trial to get access to an unparalleled library of learning video materials, and to let lynda.com know that you appreciate their support of MacVoices. Thanks to Lynda for being a sponsor of this week's MacVoices. Yeah, it's interesting. It's something that I guess just because of the theme that you and I always talk about backups at some point, it is something that we have to think about. And trying to get used to the idea of cloud computing. I want to be fair to Apple and really to everyone. And yeah, you said it earlier. This is not easy stuff. There's trying to find the logic sometimes that is used. It can be extremely difficult, but there often is a logic. It may not be the logic you personally agree with, but there is a logic.
Yep, that is all true.
Have you been able to? I'm not being smart here. Have you been able to find the logic in pretty much everything that you've examined, Joe?
Most things. There are a lot of things that make me go, why? Why are they doing that? I mean, I had this whole, like, iCloud keychain, for example. I understand it in the sense that I know what to expect. It's predictable. I know under what circumstances what things will happen. But iCloud Keychain does things differently than any other password manager I've ever encountered. You know, the password manager is built into every browser, and LastPass and 1Password and Dashlane and all those guys. I mean, seemingly Apple has decided that what constitutes good security for iCloud Keychain is a different thing than what everyone else in the world has decided constitutes good security. And I know the people working on security at Apple are really, really smart. So I know they must have had good, solid, sane reasons for doing all the things they did, but I don't know what those reasons are. And Apple isn't the sort of company that will put up a blog post saying, hey, were you wondering why we did this with our security? Well, we're going to explain it to you. I mean, 1Password has a blog. 1Password has posts like that all the time explaining why they do a certain thing a certain way. And I find that really not just educational, but reassuring. It makes me know that there's a method to this. They're doing this for a good reason. I might wish that things were different, but I understand why. When Apple does something, I'm like, would you just tell us why? We can then agree or disagree. And you don't have to change what you're doing, but it would really help everybody so much to feel better about it, to know that you had a reason that followed, some logical progression of steps. So I don't think Apple's going to do that. I really wish they would.
Yeah. How about the specifics on the book? This is the 4th edition, as we said. Pricing, do you know upgrade policies and all that?
Yeah, it's 167 pages long. It has a cover price of $15. As always, we offer a discount for people who had older editions, so you can check ebook, click the ebook extras link on the cover, or check for updates if it's a very old version. And you'll be taken to a web page with all the details. Of course, most people will have already received email from Adam and Tanya about what the upgrade offer is. Their usual pattern is just like software. If you bought it really, really recently, like the last few months, you'll get a free update. Whereas if you purchased it longer ago than that, then you'll get a discount on the update. For new purchasers, it's $15. And I think it's well worth it. It's not just, it's partly about solving problems, but really it's mostly about explaining what's there, and not, again, I can't say why Apple made decisions, but I can help you understand what will happen when you do various things that you might not have otherwise realized, because a lot of it is really not self-explanatory or obvious. And that's really the purpose of the book, is to help you understand how to get over those humps.
Yeah, and that kind of thing is very much needed, especially right now when you're dealing with the cloud. I loved your analogy when we started out that, like a cloud, it's always changing and the edges are kind of fuzzy, because that's what it feels like sometimes. Certain services, they're well documented, or you're very experienced with them. iCloud is a bit harder to get your hands around, and like you say, they're constantly adding things. So we thank you on behalf of everyone out there who's struggling with this. You've written the guide, and we appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Joe, we'll have you back again soon. I know there's some other things that have been done and are being done, and so we'll do it again.
Yes, absolutely. So, thank you, Chuck.
Folks, Take Control of iCloud, 4th edition, Mr. Joe Kissell. Check it out at takecontrolbooks.com. I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. Check us out soon, because we will be back with more. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Mac Voices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the Mac Voices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest Mac Voices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free Mac Voices magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.